Baby Blue Dragon, and welcome back to another episode of Minecraft. Now, last time we left off, we've been scavenging alongside with building our forever home and destroying some terrain as well. But also, I actually did a full-on review on the Spirit movie, and also the rip-off version that should never even coexist in the first place. That one. But speaking of a series that should not even coexist in the first place, in today's video, we are going to talk about, finally, the How to Train Your Dragon series, The 9 Realms. Should I even tell you or say anything about this show? Because let me tell you something. First off, I had high hopes that this show could be something very interesting and something a bit different. Oh boy, I was so wrong in so many ways. This show, I have never seen a show like this before. Like, I have seen stuff been like copycatted before, or like shows that's just like part of the series but then isn't totally not part of the series, or stuff that's just like can't be explained in the first place of why it exists. And this is probably one of them. Which there are so much things to talk about this show that I can't even tell you guys how infuriating it is for me, including you guys, on how this show really feels for myself. But before that, we should definitely go down memory lane, actually talk about and see how this movie became as it is to this day. So, let's go memory lane and see how this show actually coexists to this day. So, the question is, where did this all begin? This all began from a book series called How to Train Your Dragon. It is at least a 13 or 12 series about Hiccup and Toothless going on crazy adventures and actually battling or conquering some of these missions. The person that made this wonderful series is Crescenda, is the person that made this entire series come to life. 2003 is when this book series actually began. Or if you want to go to a step further, there's a book series called How to Be a Viking that was made in 1999, followed by the other ones as well. Now, I actually read all of these books for myself, and they are really, really good. I highly recommend you guys go and read the book series. Like, I literally sat down and read an entire book in one sitting for the past 3 days. That is not possible for my knowledge to actually comprehend. I am not a fast reader, but these books, I am very fast. So as years go by, the book actually got picked up by DreamWorks themselves, and they released a wonderful movie that took about 8 years. 8 years, people, to make a wonderful movie like this. Which this film was released in 2010. Gosh, 13 years. The show was a very good success. Nonetheless, it has been loved by many people across the nation and has been the icon ever since during that time. There has been merchandise, video games, and many other things that came upon this show. The show is a Rotten Tomatoes of 99%. Wow, one decimal away for it being 100. And the ratings was an 8.1 out of 10. So obviously, you could definitely tell that this movie became a smashing hit. A smashing hit. 2 years later, when the show became a smashing hit, they decided to make a series on Cartoon Network, which is at least 4 seasons of the show, and it's called Dragons Riders of Berk. The show was really amazing. I have seen every single episode on that day. Every single episode. Not joking. The show was really, really amazing. It had really good story, really good character development, and many other things to be added on to the series. Like many dragons, new villains, and everything. Which I actually like to point out, in the book, there is a villain called Alvin the Treacherous, and they actually have Alvin the Treacherous in the series throughout the entire season. Which that is phenomenal. And then there are many other bad guys that were added on into the series, as so on and so forth. Which honestly, the show is definitely a hit. It is definitely part of the series, and I highly recommend you guys to go and watch it. Please. 2 years later, the How to Train Your Dragon 2 movie came out. The show again was a smashing success. It had a 7.8 out of 10, which that is really good, not going to lie, and a Rotten Tomatoes of 92%. Wow, 92%. Which, if you don't know by now, spoilers alert, this show is taking in an era of Viking era between dragons and Vikings. One Viking named Hiccup wants to catch a dragon, the most fearsome and powerful dragon that's been destroying their attacks for many generations. He finally captures it and actually did damage with it. He decides to help the dragon with this bond. No bond would actually take away from it. It's like as if he created his own best friend, which honestly Hiccup didn't have a lot of friends, but Toothless, however, he became his friend. And later on, many other people decided to have dragons. Peace between dragons and Vikings became peaceful. The second movie, hey, we found Hiccup's mother! He decided to explore the world, and he actually accidentally stumbled across some dragon hunters. They decided to fight and thought the dragon hunters thought that he was the one that actually destroyed all the traps. However, he didn't do anything about this. Sooner or later, he accidentally stumbles upon a so-called quote-unquote villain, but then soon became noticed that it is his own mother. His long-lost mother that abandoned him for many, many years ago. Which honestly, his mother and him have some things in common. They both see that dragons are equal to as Vikings. They're very kindly creatures and should actually treat with respect. So then the real villain actually came and actually did a lot of hurtful damage and actually destroyed the one Viking that was actually true to its core, which was Stoic the Vast. Rest in peace, Stoic. Rest in peace. So Hiccup decides to actually become chief and actually destroy the villain, which is Drago, alongside with the Alpha Dragon. And sooner or later, Toothless decides to take on the Alpha and became the Alpha to all dragons. So honestly, it was a win-win between Toothless and Hiccup because now they're both chiefs of both dragon and Vikings. Now here is another series. So that's basically all. So then finally we stumble across the Netflix series, which I had no idea that this actually exists, but however, this actually does exist, which is called Dragons Race to the Edge. Now I had zero idea that this was ever existed in the first place. But somehow in some way, I actually found this, and I've missed so many episodes and so many seasons, and there's just so much impact to it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm definitely gonna have a marathon of this. I'm definitely gonna sit down and watch this. So this show actually was a very big project for everyone that was actually working on this. There was so much to unpack for this series in whole. The show had so many struggles. They were losing budget, they were losing money. Some people, even one of the people that was actually helping and making Dragons Race to the Edge actually sold their house to make the show come to life. And what you know, all that payoff was definitely worth it, because this series became a 4-star review of 8.2 out of 10. Wow, that's a lot coming from this show. Which this show aired in 2005 and came to an end on 2018. Wow, that's a lot. That's really a lot. Which actually, this show takes place in between the first one and the second one. So somewhere around there, it actually took place during that time. Now, let's get on to the final How to Train Your Dragon movie, which is called How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. Gosh, that movie made me cry. So much in there, it almost had me at tears. This movie was so breathtaking. So breathtaking. From the visuals to the characters' development to such a great and honorable ending for the How to Train Your Dragon fandom. This show was basically Hiccup growing up, deciding to become a man and chief in charge for his people. Not only that, Toothless finds a lover, which is the Light Fury, and thus beginning the relationship between Toothless and the Light Fury. And it showed a very powerful message, which there are sometimes in things that you love, you have to let go. And that was a very powerful message from a kid's movie. But then hey, at the very end, at least they get to see the dragons again. But as parents and with kids. This show itself had a Rotten Tomatoes of 90%. And it was 7.4 out of 10. Wow. These shows had at least a 90% on all of them. And it makes you wonder, why on earth did any of these shows win an Oscar? I'm just saying. Why did none of these win an Oscar? But yet Toy Story wins an Oscar. So, as time went on, there were so many video games being made during the franchise or the making of the franchise, alongside with merchandise, storyboards, comic book strips, and so much more. Which then brings us to this day, when someone decides to pull from the rabbit hole the most cursive thing I've ever seen that ever could exist. Which is the How to Train Your Dragon: The 9 Realms. Like I said before, I don't even know where to begin in the first place. This whole entire show is a leap of garbage. It's like as if someone had cheese slices and there is a board and they decided to write down what's on the cheese and throw it at the wall and see which sticks. That's basically what's happening in the 9 Realms. So let me try and explain this entirety of the 9 Realms. So a big huge asteroid decides to actually hit Earth and create a ginormous crater on Earth. And a mother and son decides to go at a facility where the mother is actually working on. On the way there, we actually get to see some of the people that you may or may never see again. And of course, the children.